Hello, I'm your host Grant Jeffrey, and I would like to share with you an extraordinary new product that is quite new to our ministry, but we feel will be of significant medical help to you and your family. Many of you are familiar with and have read my book, The Signature of God. It's one of my favorites. In this book, I studied a number of things that try to answer the question, if God truly wrote the Bible, how would he express himself in a written revelation that would differentiate the Bible from all other false revelations who claim to be the Word of God? In the book, I argued that I believe God would put something in the Bible that humans could not possibly write unaided. We looked at Bible prophecy fulfilled. We look at archaeology and historical nature of documents and their incredible accuracy. We looked at scientific statements found in the Bible that are thousands of years in advance of their day. But one of the most fascinating to me in the Signature of God was the medical evidence in the Bible that is thousands of years in advance of what modern science discovered. Do you know that we did not even know germs existed until 1880? Doctors, up until 1880, would go in at 6 o'clock in the morning and do an autopsy, and if their hands did not look particularly disgusting, they would, without washing, go into the maternity ward and examine women who were in for childbirth, perhaps breech birth or other problems. To their surprise, 1/3 of the women and babies died. Naturally, germs were being transmitted from dead bodies to those women. It was virtually a death sentence to go to a hospital. And yet, though the Bible 35 centuries ago talks about the need for absolute cleanliness, the establishment of latrines for an army at war, the establishment also for the kind of things like sanitation, systems for the burial of the sacrificed animals, of the waste from those animals, they must be buried outside the camp. How did Moses know, I asked, to write 35 centuries ago about how to deal with a plague? The Bible tells us in the book of Exodus and Numbers that when there was a plague in the camp, those afflicted had to be taken out and quarantined. They had to be watched separately and isolated for 7 days. The young Levite priest, as a medical officer, had to examine them, and he had to come back into the camp, but he had to wash his clothes 3 times in running water and sunlight before he could re-enter. How could Moses have known these things? But the most interesting thing I talked about in the Signature of God about medical evidence was the ashes of the red heifer sacrifice. It's found in Numbers 19. The Bible tells us that God told Moses that they were to take a young heifer under 3 years of age, a female, with no blemish upon it, no white or black hair, only pure red. That animal was to be taken outside the camp, which was very unusual. But remember that Jesus, of whom the red heifer speaks, was also crucified outside the city. The Bible tells us that the red heifer sacrifice was taken out by a young priest. The neck was cut. Instantly the animal died. Now, before it was totally burnt up, they added to it hyssop, cedar, and scarlet thread, each of them symbolically representing important things in the ritual of dealing with the defilement of sin and death. You see, if you buried an animal or buried your father, you were defiled. You were unclean for 7 days, and you could not go to the tabernacle or later the temple. You could not go to a wedding. Yet, the Bible said that God provided a way to get around this. If you were unclean because you were defiled by death, then God said, if you take the ashes of the red heifer, the young priest would take some of those ashes and put it into a cistern, a large cistern full of water, spring water, and that spring water would become the water of purification. The hyssop was most important in this. And I pointed out in the book, Signature of God, that the hyssop has an antivirus, anti-germ content. It is a general disinfectant of tremendous potency. The cedar would have caused you to rub your hands vigorously, allowing that water and hyssop to enter into your skin. What we know is throughout the Bible, such in Psalm 51:7, purge me with hyssop that I might be clean. Throughout even the New Testament, there are references numerous times to hyssop purifying not only spiritually, but also purifying to the flesh. I believe from my research, and mentioned in the book briefly, that hyssop was a practical medicinal cure for disinfecting all sorts of germs and viruses. We even found that when there was leprosy in a camp or a home, that the dead body, the various particles in the home, the portions of food, anything that was not destroyed had to be sprinkled with a hyssop plant, the waters of purification containing the hyssop. Why? Because it cleansed physically as well as spiritually. Amazingly, I've discovered only a few months ago that a man who owns a company in the United States that specialized in cosmetic and cleansing agents had read my book, and as a Christian, he was quite fascinated. It was unusual, but he had the medical scientific officers to actually check out. And they went and did the research and found that the hyssop of the Bible was a Syrian type of oregano. And what they discovered is that there's almost nothing that this hyssop won't kill in terms of dealing with germs and dealing with various viruses. They used it initially on acne and other skin diseases. It worked tremendously. Then people started saying, my son had a throat infection. I tried to have it sprayed beneath the tongue, and it had a marvelous effect in cleansing up a throat infection. Others would write in about ear infections. Marvelously, this company has developed a line called Hyssop Health, a line of products that is used to deal with the kind of skin infections and other infections. And my wife Kay and I, for the last 35 days, have been using those products. And I can tell you, it's dealt with some very serious skin problems that I had on my back. It has also dealt with a throat situation I had with congestion in my chest. And I can verify from studying the medical reports and from our own personal experience and studying the anecdotal experiences of many others, that Hyssop Health is a line of products that has great potential to heal your family and yourself. I encourage you to look into this. And the following material will lay out what those products are and the price. If you are interested, I encourage you to take a chance of examining something that goes back 3,500 years in the Bible and goes all the way through the New Testament, that deals with something God gave a formula for that can help the healing of your family and mine. It's been a joy to share with you. God bless.